frame, previously the analysis was we broke our bullish trend, right? We broke this sort of uptrending structure of continuous higher highs and higher lows, right? So simply put, this low, this downside swing is a lower low than this low, right? So that is a break in our structure. Previously, it was we are consistently making higher highs and higher lows all the way through into price discovery continuously, right? We're constantly finding new all-time highs every few days, every week or so, right? Now the market has shifted. We saw a very relentless sell-off for the past almost 2 weeks, and that's because those lower time frames flipped bearish, right? So those lower time frames flipping bearish pushed us into a break in our trend, right? Where we should have kind of held a higher low and then continued the uptrend that is implied. But things don't last forever, so we saw our trend break and we saw the result of our trend breaking. So this is a very important move. The 10% up spike in our current daily candle and the reaction that we had off of this 47k demand zone, it's very notable. It is eye-catching, right? It shows some sort of strength, and when we look into our lower time frames, we can determine that. But it is not a full flip in the trend. It is not, this is a macro bottom, we're up from here, bears are dumb kind of thing yet, right? We still need the other piece of the puzzle. We need uh, a higher low, higher high to fully shift our trend back to up again, right? And imply further uptrend. At the moment, what this says is if we form a lower high anywhere below this 65k high, right? That current all-time high that we're holding at 65k. If we form a lower high, it could be right here, it could be here, it could be here, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be below 65k. You will have a confirmed downtrend, right? And that implies lower highs and lower lows. That implies potentially some sort of a bear market, right? So all throughout this price action, with this being excluded, that's the one difference, right? We had the same conversation back here, but for the majority, all of this price action, a lot of this is that uptrending structure that we're used to, that higher high, higher low uptrend on our daily time frame that implied bears are dumb, price discovery, higher highs, higher lows, uptrend is the up is the trend, right? Now it's different. We have to keep that in the back of our heads that bears do still have an argument here in the sense that if we don't just continue upwards in this crazy V-shaped reversal and see this 20% up spike, right? In all in one motion, then we're going to have a confirmed bear trend. We're going to have a confirmed downtrend, right? So that's not too helpful because if we're going to continue the uptrend, if we're going to resume the bull market, right? We need either the 20% move directly, V-shape reversal into a new all-time high, which is unlikely, or we're going to have to shift the trend bearish at some point, meaning we're going to have to put in a lower high and then hopefully follow up with a higher low, right? Some sort of higher low move. So again, higher low anywhere higher than this previous low at 47K. So bears have an argument. Bears definitely have a stance, but it's not too helpful because a lot needs to happen in order to have that full conviction of which way is this going to break, right? So that's where our lower time frames come in, where the daily chart can give you a sort of gist of what's the context of the situation. The 4 hour chart does a lot of the heavy lifting for us, right? So the 4 hour chart, we can better see a lot of these intraday levels, right? So how do we determine strength? We determine strength when the trend is broken bullishly and levels have been reclaimed, right? So not just the percentage of the move. That's why, back here, we're saying there's not much potential here. Nothing's changed. And back here we had a crazy wick, level got tapped. We're still making lower highs, lower lows, nothing's changed. So we don't want to get too antsy and assume some sort of macro bottom. Here, shit's changed, right? This is obviously very different. We are reclaiming key levels, and we've broken this trend of lower highs all the way from this right here, this price action on April 16th. Yeah. April 16th is when we said lower highs, lower lows, downtrend to be expected. Look for buy targets lower, right? Look for 57K, look for 40 or 52.4K, look for 50.8K, look for 47K. Continue looking for buy targets lower over and over and over again until eventually we don't come down to your target, which means we're flipping the trend bullishly, right? So we saw the 47K tap. That's our 4-hour demand zone that we had marked out. If you're not new to these live streams, that should seem very familiar. We've discussed this zone a lot. Seeing it hold up nicely only adds to the confluence, adds to that conviction that we are drawing the right levels. We're looking at the right things, right? So nice there. We got the tap. We got the buy targets lower. People who simply just zoomed out, looked for buy targets lower. If you had 47K as a buy target, you got rewarded, right? And then with that, you got more rewarded in the sense that we're actually showing strength. Finally, none of this price action prior to the price action today and what happened, late yesterday's trading is strength. This is strength. We have broken the structure. All of a sudden, we're not making lower lows. We crack that. We make a higher low or a higher high. Sorry. We're not making lower highs. We're making a higher high, right? So we crack that in the form of a higher high. So now, just like on the daily, how we need a lower high, we lock in a bearish trend. On the 4-hour, all we need is a higher low, and we lock in a bullish trend on the 4-hour chart, right? So that simply means a higher low somewhere higher than 47K, right? So that's very likely. It's very likely that we'll get some sort of 4-hour bullish market structure confirmation that implies higher lows, higher highs, right? So it's good. It should make you optimistic, right? We still have that daily time frame, and again, it's not too useful. It gives you a nice idea of the bigger sense and the context of the situation on a bigger outlook, but the 4-hour does a lot of the heavy lifting. So for the rest of the week, we might see a bullish trend. So what's the sort of line in the sand? For me at the moment, it is these 4-hour 200s and the 57K supply zone that is, currently somewhat confluent with them, and the 47K low that we should hold on the bigger outlook, right? That's the two, uh, you know, critical points that we really need to watch out for. Above these 4-hour 200s, it is much more probable that we see something like a V-shaped reversal into new all-time highs, right? Because we've kind of cleared the final boss. We've kind of gotten rid of a lot of the bearish argument, and probabilities very heavily shift into the bull's favor, right? And I say that because not only do we have 57K supply zone as confluence with that region as a whole, but look how key our 4-hour 200s have been for majority of this bull market, right? We consistently use them as local bottoms, and when we break down from them and reclaim, bullish retest them and hold them as support, they once again flip back into local bottoms before seeing a new all-time high. So once we lost those, things look very scary, right? And it will continue to be scary. It will continue to be, there's still that chance that we might see the lower high on the daily chart and bigger downtrend follow from that until that argument gets eradicated, until those levels are reclaimed as support, right? And then taking what we just said, we know that they tend to act as local bottoms. Even when we break down from them, we go on to reclaim, bullish retest them as support. If they hold, they tend to act as local bottoms before a new all-time high, right? So if we continue upwards, if we just continue ripping on these lower time frames and we head directly into these 4-hour 200s, not only do they have the opportunity to act as the lower high on our daily chart, but they also have the potential to act as a local bottom if we can reclaim them as support before some sort of crazy parabolic reversal, right, towards the upside. So, very pivotal level. And at the moment, all you really need is to hold this 47K as your low, right? You could pull back from current price into this zone here. We talked about it in the market update. 52.4K looks like it might have gotten tapped on lower time frames. I'm not really too sure, but 52.4K. If that zone gets tested, it has potential to act as the higher low on our 4-hour. And then if we lose that, we take it level by level. We head down to this daily demand zone at 50.8, 50.6, however you want to think about it. We look for the higher low in our 4-hour chart there instead, right? So either way, we're still looking for the higher low. If we lose both of these regions, then all of a sudden this break in our structure, this bullish uh, break where we were downtrending and now we have shown some form of strength. If we lose both of these regions, it all of a sudden starts to look like this little tiny glimpse of strength might be a fluke, right? And we might put in the lower high on our daily before continuing a much bigger downtrend. So for me personally, I consider this price action and probably the price action in the next week or so to be very pivotal, very crucial for what we might see on a much bigger time frame for Bitcoin, as well as just the market in general. Right. And then we can talk about the hourly. A couple things worth noting on the hourly as well. So if you've been reading market updates past week or so, we've been discussing the hourly 200 MAs are key, right? We really want to pay attention to them. They tend to act as local tops and local bottoms intraday, right? So the price action in between what you really can't always see on the daily or the 4-hour. So they tend to act as very pivotal levels on the intraday levels, on the lower time frames. And we've been discussing them and saying, price is so far away that there really is not too much to note on the hourly chart, right? There's really not too much to take note of, is nothing too relevant. These hourly 200s are the main sort of relevance on this time frame, and here we are now reclaiming them. We bullish retested them, and we might see further acceleration, right, to bearish retest our 4-hour 200s, and we may get our decision there at that region. So hourly 200s, huge. You want to pay attention to them. Very strong intraday bullish momentum as long as we're above them. If we lose them again, then you're looking at the possibility of those pullbacks on the 4-hour chart where we're going to look for our higher low, right? And if we lose both of those regions, becomes very unlikely that we put in some sort of higher low on the 4-hour, which means we've probably already found our lower high on the daily chart. So take it level by level, look at time frame by time frame. That's how I like to think about things. And hopefully that makes sense of how I'm kind of doing this like domino effect of time frame by time frame. And if this, then this sort of thing on our lower time frames may bleed into higher time frames or, you know, whatever. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to try and further explain that in future market updates and future live streams. But yeah, so that's Bitcoin. Does anybody have any questions about Bitcoin before we move on? All right. All right. So we will also discuss ETH USD. I know you guys like ETH. So ETH USD, the analysis has been that sort of bears are dumb, higher highs, higher lows, price discovery argument that we kind of jokingly say, and we said for a lot of Bitcoin's bull market, right? For a lot of the uptrend that we saw all the way up to 65K, as soon as we broke all-time highs, you heard me come into these live streams and say bears are dumb, higher highs, higher lows, more all-time highs to be expected, right? Look for crazy high fib targets, keep your buys or keep your sell targets high, and adjust if probabilities start to shift on lower time frames, saying that it's unlikely we get to your crazy high sell targets, right? So that mentality has not changed at all in the slightest. This is still consistently higher highs and higher lows all the way through, right? This is our higher high, the recent downside move, still a higher low. So now we're uptrending again, and it's implied that we will find yet another higher high into a new all time high into more price discovery, right? And ideally, in some sort of perfect world, we will continue this trend all the way up into all of these crazy high fib targets where you look like a genius just for simply respecting the trend. That's it. Just by simply analyzing, are we going up or are we going down? And then saying, if we're going up, it's more probable that we're going to continue going up. And if we start going down, hey, maybe it's more likely we start going down, right? Just by putting that very bare bones, simple, simplistic, stupid almost analysis, you can outtrade a lot of people who are trying to find these local tops and call some sort of doomsday bear market for ETH, right? We want to give bulls the benefit of the doubt that it's much easier for them to continue something that has already been established, like this crazy high uptrend into price discovery, rather than how difficult it would be for a bear to come in and start selling and create this cascade into a bear market, right? It'd be very difficult to undo a lot of the trend that we've been seeing for the past 6 months or so. So that's where we're at for ETH, and that has not changed. And the recent higher low only adds to the conviction of that argument. And by some means, if we do find a lower high, we start to break down. So be it, right? So be it. I came in into these live streams and told you higher highs, higher lows, bears are dumb, whatever. And I said that at a local top. It has benefited us all throughout this bull market. So I'm going to keep coming in here and applying that mentality as long as it keeps working, right? Because guess what? That mentality is quite literally making me money. So that's the analysis for ETH on the higher outlook, on the higher time frame, right? Then when you pair that with something like your 4-hour chart and you start analyzing 4-hour levels, but mainly these 4-hour 200 MAs. I want to just turn off all of our speculative levels where I'm drawing gray boxes and whatever. I'm just looking at the 4-hour 200s. So without even looking at the price action, right, we can make this so unbelievably simple. What is our trend here, right? What is our trend in this certain price action? It's very clearly up, right? It's very clearly an uptrend. It has a ton of upwards momentum. There's not too much of a bearish argument. What is our trend here? For the most part, it's somewhat neutral, right? Same thing here, it's kind of neutral, and here it's a downtrend. So our momentum currently says up. You could have said this all throughout this price action. And guess what? All throughout this price action, you have people coming in and telling you, oh, ETH topped, right? $600. Oh, ETH topped out. Oh, $888. ETH topped out. Oh, $1,000. ETH topped out. But the momentum is still saying up. Then when you put the price action on the chart, you can see that ETHUSD has consistently used these 4-hour 200s as local bottoms for basically the majority of this upward movement into price discovery, right? All the way since October of 2020, consistently use them as local bottoms. So when we lose the 4-hour 200s for ETH, you will hear me come in and say this looks very scary. This is a significant shift in our trend, right? I am very afraid. The possibility of a strong bear market or whatever you want to talk about has increased significantly. You will hear me come in and make those arguments, right? Then when we reclaim them, it's back to, oh, look at that. We reclaim the same level that we've been using as local bottoms for the past 7 months, right? Then when we lose them again, it's very scary again. Right here, right, since March or the end of March to current price action, we've consistently used these 4-hour 200s as local bottoms. So, as long as we're still trading above them, there's still that chance that we might use the same thing we've been using as local bottoms for the past 7 months. We might use them as a local bottom here today. So, does it really make a ton of sense to get overly bearish on ETH and call for some sort of catastrophic bear market or whatever, as long as you're still above 4-hour 200s? To me, no. To me, it absolutely does not, right? That's my invalidation. If you can push price below the 4-hour 200s, you can start closing candles below, then I'll give you your victory, right? I'll take my analysis back and say, "Oh, that whole bears are dumb analysis. I apologize. Bears, you're geniuses." Until that happens, there's not much of an argument here, right? Then we turn our levels on. Oh, sorry. That's not what I meant to do. Then we turn our levels on, right? So we can mark out some demand zones. So we bullish retest this 4-hour demand. We bullish retest the 4-hour 200s along with that. We find very strong bounces along them. We have 4-hour supply at this 2330 region. All of a sudden we break out above that. So now it's implied that if we come down and bullish retest them, that they will hold as support, similar, you know, as they did back here and back here and back here. Right, so we have the bullish arguments in our favor. Then when you match that up with the momentum and the clear uptrend implying higher highs and higher lows, there's a very strong bullish outlook for ETH macro, right? So not very strong bearish arguments. So if you're going to zoom into these lower time frames and look for bearish arguments, you are very speculative. You are taking the least or the less probable side of these two scenarios, right? So, in my opinion, for ETH, if you guys are looking for some sort of entry, I said the same thing back here. I'll say it again. This 2330 region looks like a very solid region to get long on any, pullbacks, in my opinion. And we have the hourly 200s to go along with confluence to that idea. So, that looks like a very solid region for any sort of long entries, or if you're already allocated and you want to add to your position, or if you don't have a position at all, that looks like a very solid region to start a position or add on to it. So we'll move on. I do want to discuss ETH BTC. Right, ETH BTC. Oh, look at that. These are new. We're gonna actually turn these off. Those were not there last week. Right. So ETH BTC, we're kind of putting a lot of merit on this pivot level, is what I call it, at 0.037 region, right? Breaking above that weekly zone makes me believe that the gate has been opened to this 0.054 region, right? If we're just taking this level by level on the weekly time frame, I'm looking at, this is a weekly level, 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 right? So we break above 0.054, you'll hear me call for 0.086, right? We break above that, you'll hear me call for zero point 0.1 ETH, right? We break above that, all of a sudden it's very likely that we break into new all-time highs, right? So breaking above 0.036, my target becomes 0.054, right? When we're closing weekly candles above the same region that has consistently acted as local tops for the past 2.5 years, right? With this being the exception, it's very key. It's very crucial. It's very important. It's significant. You want to pay attention to that. So that's where we're at for ETH. So you guys heard me come in previous live streams call this 0.054 move. We're about halfway there, a little more than halfway. So very nice to see the trend remain the trend, right? Up is still going up. The up that is implied is still happening, right? It's really that simple. Oh, what do I mean by that? When we jump in our lower time frames, this is consistent higher highs and higher lows. right? We were previously downtrending. You heard me come in and say there's not much of a bullish argument. We need some sort of levels to be reclaimed, trend to be broken, whatever. We break this, that's our first higher high. That's our first sign of strength, right? Then higher low, follow up with a higher high. All of a sudden, you're above that pivot level. You're above that crucial level on the higher time frame, and you bullish retest it as support. That's your higher low, right? So then higher high. So even if we pull back, we could pull back into 0.04 region, still going to be a higher low, right? So that's probably the region you want to look out for if our lower time frames start to break down for ETH BTC, and that would still be perfectly within the terms of the uptrend, right? Still perfectly creating higher highs and higher lows. So strong outlook for ETH, not only USD but BTC pair as well. And then really, there's not too much on the 4 hour, but I do want to discuss the hourly. So now we can go ahead and turn our moving averages back on. So now for the hourly chart, again, kind of level by level, that sort of if then scenarios, we want to keep those in mind because we're talking about probabilities and likely outcomes if certain things play out, right? So if we pull back, which this is an uptrend, so there's not necessarily anything saying that we're going to pull back, but if we pull back into this 0.044 region, we have hourly demand as well as hourly 200 MAs that have consistently acted as local bottoms multiple times for a lot of this leg upwards, right? Probably the entirety of this leg upwards. So, strong support in that region for potential continuation, right? We come down, we test that zone, and then we continue the uptrend of higher highs, higher lows that is implied, right? If we come down, we lose this region, then we could still plummet into this 0.04 zone. We have, daily 4 hour demand, however you want to think about it. We have demand in that region, and that would be ideal place for us to find our higher low for continuation of the trend, right? So all you're doing is you're assuming continuation of the trend nonetheless. It's just where you're doing it. You can do it at 0.044, right? If that doesn't work out, then you're still expecting continuation of the trend. It's just you're expecting it lower as opposed to at this 0.044 region, right? And you can do so lower. So you're just taking that same, excuse me, that same mentality and applying it time frame by time frame, level by level, key pivot level by key pivot level, right? And if you lose all those zones, then you're looking at potential pullbacks into this weekly zone again. And at that point, you're breaking your daily structure, you're breaking a lot of these trends. So maybe not the greatest thing, maybe not what you want to see, right? Another pullback of a weekly time frame or of that weekly pivot level, right? So, all right. So a couple DMs. I was going to go over Bitcoin dominance, but to be quite honest with you, I looked over it. I didn't see anything too worth noting. Can go over it really quick. Right. So dominance for me, I mentioned this plenty of times. I'm just kind of looking at these higher time frame levels, and this is just a very speculative. I say this is support, so I'm going to draw a little line there, and I'm going to assume that we might bounce from that region. So that's all that is, right? There's nothing saying that we have a high probability to bounce. There's nothing saying that up is the trend. There's nothing saying that you should capitulate altcoins. None of that, right? Down is very much the trend, but I'm looking at these speculative horizontal levels for potential take profits, right? So I'm prepping for if a doomsday happens and, capitulation altcoins bleed out 50% in 2 days or whatever, then I've prepared by taking profit at my speculative regions. But while I'm doing that, I'm also anticipating the trend of lower highs, lower lows continuously to continue, right? That's it. I'm expecting the best, or I'm expecting, in this case, I'm expecting the trend and I'm preparing for the worst. And that's it. So then 4 hour chart, again, not too much worth noting. 4 hour market structure has shifted, but how notable is it really? Not quite sure. Previously, it was lower highs, lower lows, right? So a very strong downtrend. And so now this price action is kind of higher lows and lower highs. So you have a consolidation. So all that implies is sideways on the 4 hour. So it doesn't really favor either side. It's not implying a trend in either direction. It doesn't give me an edge of what's the probability here. It just tells me sideways, and then whatever happens next, if we continue down, we're probably going to continue down in a very trendy sort of way. If we continue up, we're going to continue up in a very trendy sort of way. So consolidation, sideways, all that implies is sideways, and whatever follows that tends to be the trend, and we probably don't want to fight that, whatever comes next from it, right? Then we look at our hourly, and this is probably what's the most worth noting and worth looking at, because look at how well our hourly 200 MAs get respected, right? So consistently used as local tops for a lot of this price action, right? So where are we now? We're still below them. So resistance is still resistance. The trend is still the trend, and it still implies downside, right? That changes if all of a sudden we go from using these hourly 200s as local tops for the past month or so into using them as support, and we can match that with our 4 hour analysis, which said sideways, and now we've broken up. So now our 4 hour has broken up and our hourly has lost the most pivotal resistance level and is now using it as support. So at that point, yes, my speculative analysis of these horizontal lines starts to look very smart, but there's nothing saying that it will be that as of now, right? We're just watching for if that happens. So yeah, like I said, not too much worth noting at the moment. It's kind of just let me tell you what we're watching for future so that we can note it in the future. Right? So with that, I'm going to now transition into whatever you guys want to see. So if you want charts, go ahead and feel free to send them in live stream chat, DM them to me, whatever you want to do. I really don't mind. And we'll jump into that stuff. And also, any questions that you have about anything that we just discussed or just in general, feel free. All right. So first off, we got Crypto Boss wants BTT USDT. BitTorrent. All right. So BTT USDT, I love my fibs, right? So all I did here was I took this fib from May of 2019 and drew the low of March of 2020, and that gave me a high time frame fib draw that I can look out for. So that fib draw is kind of very speculative, more than fibs are speculative already, right? What are fibs really? They're kind of just these magic numbers that we blindly sort of look for and try and rely on. So that's all it is. So fibs are very speculative, right? And they're more speculative, I say, because none of these fib extensions got respected. Right? Our 1.618 didn't see any reaction. Our 2.618, no reaction, no reaction, no reaction. Finally, the 6.85, we wick it and we see this local top. Is that just a coincidence? Is that me trying to justify this price action? Probably, right? Probably. I'm being honest with you. That's probably what I'm doing here by drawing this fib and seeing that only the 6.85 got respected as resistance. But I have nothing else to work with when we are in price discovery, right? And we've gone so parabolic and so far away from the price action that we're used to that I don't have much else to work with. So I'm going to use the fibs. I'm going to justify it by saying we tapped 6.85. That was the local top. We saw a very nasty reaction, right? Understand that is my way of justifying it, though. So that's the daily. The 4 hour is still bullish the way that I see it, right? Because the 4 hour 200 MAs. You guys are going to get absolutely sick and tired of me saying this because so many coins in this market respect the 4 hour 200s very nicely. I don't know what the word is, but they respect them heavily, right? And they tend to even use them as local bottoms. So if we see the same thing here, don't be surprised. The thing that would very confidently, you know, make me say that, and how do I say this? Man, I'm at a loss for words today. The thing that pushes me over the edge and really convicts me that these 4 hour 200s have a strong potential to act as the local bottom as they did previously would be if we move up and reclaim this 4 hour demand zone, right? So clearly, or now it's supply. So it's acting as resistance. It is still resistance. Resistance is resistance. Expect it to be resistance. But if we break out and we reclaim it as support, very strong bullish argument because now you have tested the same region that you've tested multiple times prior and used them as local bottoms, and you don't have too much resistance above your head now. You've reclaimed this very key pivot level at this 7 cent region, and you're using it as support. And then at that point, to go along with that, what's our 4 hour market structure here? Previously, it was lower highs, lower lows, right? All of a sudden, you have this higher low. So now if you follow that up with a higher high, you have a uptrend, right? You're now all of a sudden uptrending. So you've tested the 4 hour demand or the 4 hour 200s as local bottom potentially. You've reclaimed a very key pivot level on the 4 hour, and you've confirmed a bullish uptrend on your 4 hour chart as well. And you know that your daily time frame is consistently, oh, I did not mean to do that, is consistently heading on into price discovery over and over and over again, and bears look very dumb. So the analysis becomes this looks very bullish. There's a lot of potential for this to continue its bull market that it just had, right? If we lose the 4 hour 200s again, if we invalidate this higher low by then closing below again, right? And creating lower high, lower low, and we're losing the 4 hour 200s, the same region that held us as support and local bottoms for the past who knows how long, and we're bearish retesting this 4 hour supply zone and holding it as resistance, then things start to look very scary. This looks like it might continue to pull back deeper, right? So the zone that I would be watching, probably the 4 hour demand at almost 4 cents region, right? Just a little bit under 4 cents. So that's my analysis here. So similar to Bitcoin, where we have that key pivot level at the 4 hour with the supply zone, this is very similar, right? It's an if then. And I think it's a very crucial if then statement. All right. TRB USDT. Oh man, don't tell me every coin's going to look the exact same. All right. So kind of weird to make a market structure analysis on this because what is our market structure really? I don't know, because this is a higher high, right? After creating a lower low, and then you followed your higher high up with a lower low. So very odd, very, very odd price action going on here. I'm not really too sure. For me, this is still that sort of uptrending, bears are dumb, look for price discovery, look for fib targets over and over and over again, right? So I would have been the person who sold 1.618, just like I would have sold the 2.618. These fibs actually get very well respected. The 3.618 acted as local tops multiple times. Finally, we break above that supply zone and we tap the 4.236. And now we have crossed that with a lower low, right? After tapping our 4.236, which is the ideal top sort of scenario, and we form a lower low, right? So, what is the trend? What is the market structure? For the most part, it's still up, and you can see that in the moving averages, and it's still that price discovery, bears are dumb, whatever. But you're not going to get too much from this daily chart. So, we really got to zoom in. When you do zoom in, you can also see that for TRB USDT, 4-hour 200s get very well respected. Not just as local bottoms, but kind of as both, right? Local tops and local bottoms. So when we're above them, we're very bullish. We're potentially going to use them as a local bottom. And then if we break down, that tends to create some sort of bigger downside move, right? And we start using them as local tops. So I put a lot of weight on these 4-hour 200s, but it's not necessarily the end of the world if we're below them. But it is definitely more probable for it to be the end of the world for TRB as long as we are below them. So at the moment, this is bearish retesting them as potential resistance, right? And then to follow up with that, we have this 4-hour demand zone at this 2.618, right? Remember that acted as local tops multiple times. Even here, after breaking above it, acted as local bottoms, kind of held this range. So we're above that. So if we lose that, a lot of the bullish arguments go away. It then becomes you're looking for the deeper sell off. You're looking for continuation of the bearish trend after losing something that was very pivotal and, you know, bearish retesting it. And then the result from that was you lose a major demand zone. So if we lose $67 region, I don't have too much hope for this. That's when I zoom out and I look for buy targets lower, right? I'm looking for $50. I'm looking for 44 daily demand. I'm looking for 33 daily demand, and so on and so forth. If instead we can reclaim the 4-hour 200s, looks very good. And all of a sudden, that looks like some sort of range deviation, right? Below the range, because for the most part, this is a range. This is sideways, right? With deviations on both sides. Where we deviate above, we should continue upwards. Remember, price discovery. Bears are dumb. Higher highs, higher lows. You just broke out of a range. You should continue upwards. Once you cross back below into the range, you've all of a sudden locked in this deviation, and that implies a move down towards the opposite side of the range, right? So, same thing here, where you deviate below the range, now you're downtrending. You've consistently created lower highs and lower lows, and you've lost your 4-hour 200s. You've lost your range lows. You should continue the downtrend. Instead, you reclaim the range again, right? So now that you've reclaimed the range, once you kind of eradicate this 4-hour 200s as a potential bearish argument, you very much open up the doorway to potentially heading up to this $87 range high again. And all that would be is a simple you reclaim the range low, you confirm a deviation, you expect to move up to the range high. That's it. You have these 4-hour 200s in your way, preventing you from, feeling confident in that. In my opinion, they prevent me from feeling very confident in that. So once we reclaim them, then I would feel very confident. And same as I would have told you here, if we break above the range, if we hold that and bullish retest it as support, we should continue upwards. I would have told you the exact same thing. We should continue upwards. Instead, we form a lower high, break down, deviation. Deviations tend to lead towards the opposite side of the range. Hourly, and our hourly 200s actually get very well respected as of recent. This is pretty choppy, but the other price action is very clean, right? Perfect taps of these hourly 200s. So only adds as confluence to that 4-hour idea, where if we start reclaiming these regions, we start reclaiming the hourly 200s, and we reclaim the 4-hour 200s, we eradicate a lot of the overhead resistance, and there's potential for a much bigger move upwards. There's potential for that extra 18%. And then we break above that, we should, in theory, see new all-time highs, right? Because bears are dumb, higher highs, higher lows, breaking above the range high, yada yada. So nice confluence. The lower time frames don't help us per se to give us, plan A, plan B, plan C, but they add to the plan that we already had in mind. So that's nice. So we also got XRP USDT. All right. So XRP USDT. I guess I shouldn't do Binance, huh? I should do, let's do Bitstamp. I think Bitstamp has more. Okay. And we'll, no, hold on. All right. So XRP USDT, clearly this is an uptrend on our higher time frames. This price action here, you can argue whatever. I'm going to say this is uptrend into consolidation. And once you break above that high, right, the lower high, once you break out and confirm a higher high, you now have a confirmed uptrend. You are now consistently creating higher highs, higher lows in this move. So from this higher high, you want to see the higher low. And looking at this price action, looking at the market structure, all the higher low needs to be is above this low, right? Above 45 cents. So how much does that help you? Not at all, because that implies that XRP can go from $1.96 to 46 cents, right? A 76% move and still be bullish. That does not help you at all. So ideally, this is where I zoom out and I say, if I'm looking for a big pullback, if our low time frames are bearish, I'm zooming out, I'm looking for buy targets lower. And in the meantime, I'm going to jump back in on the trend if and when we flip the bearish trend bullishly, right? Because I know that I'm anticipating a higher low somewhere in between current price and 45 cents. I have no idea where that higher low might get put in. So I'm just going to zoom out, be less speculative, let the downtrend resume into my buy targets. If they never get hit, I'll adjust, right? And I can hop in assuming the higher low has already been put in, and we're going to continue the higher high, higher low uptrend into what may potentially turn into price discovery from there, right? We almost come up to our golden pocket fib, got rejected, whatever. So now your lower time frames come into play. Now your lower time frames play a very key role here, right? And what do they say? 4-hour 200s, right? It's over and over and over again. I sound like a broken record. I know you guys are tired of it. But 4-hour 200s acted as the local bottom. Not only that, but market structure. All of a sudden, you had consolidation here, lower high, lower low. So that's a downtrend, right? Lower high. Oh, look at that. That's a higher low, right? Then higher high. So now this is an uptrend. Then when you pair that with the fact that this has held the 4-hour 200s, we've reclaimed some key levels. 4-hour demand at $9 when we're below it, it's supply. So now that we're above it, it's demand again. That's good. We're holding our 4-hour 200s. Our trend is bullish, implies uptrend, and we know that on the daily chart, we're looking for a higher low before we can eventually come up and cross this high. So very strong bullish arguments. So that's where if I'm zooming out, and let's say $1.08 is not on my list of buy targets lower. Let's say 80 cents is my first buy target, right? 80 cents, to get hit all of a sudden is now a lot less probable than it was back here or back here or back here, right? Now that we have held these regions, bullish retested them, flipped the trend back bullish again, and we know that every single time frame, every single one is confidently saying higher highs, higher lows. It seems to me like there's a high probability that this will be the higher low that we're looking for on the daily before a much bigger reversal, right? So that's when I kind of give up on this 80 cent being hit. I adjust. I can zoom into lower time frames, assess what's my optimal entries, where can I take it from here, and literally take it from there, right? So 4 hour chart, ideal if we pull back into $1.10 and we bullish retest these 4 hour 200s along with the 4 hour demand again, and that's still perfectly within the uptrend that is implied, right? The higher low, higher high uptrend, right? So that would be ideal. An entry in this $1.10 region, your invalidation is if we cross below this, this was probably a fluke, right? And all of a sudden, 80 cents starts to look very likely. So, hourly to go along with that, hourly 200s consistently acted as local tops, right? Even acted as a local bottom here. Let's see, local bottom, local bottom, local bottom. So we know the hourly 200s get respected. So now that we have a bullish uptrend on our daily, where we may have just found our higher low on the daily, and our 4 hour is confirmed creating higher highs, higher lows uptrend, and we're trading above the hourly 200 MAs, which tend to get respected as resistance and support, local tops, local bottoms, this has all of a sudden flipped very bullish, and it seems like bears may be dumb very soon, right? That's it. Just probabilities, trend, momentum, stuff like that. So if we hold these hourly 200s, if that was the retest, we may leg up into $1.46 region. Right? That's a take profit area for me. For anyone who's long anywhere in this zone, that's a take profit area, right? Resistance is resistance. There is resistance from what I can see at that region. If we flip that, a new high becomes likely. There's not too much resistance anywhere above here. When you pair that with the fact that we are trending up on all time frames and we have very strong momentum at that point, right? Seems to me like we might come up and head into this golden pocket zone. We break above that, it's very likely we see a new all-time high on XRP. All right, Maker USDT as well. All right, so let me go ahead and add my 11.09 fib. All right, so all I did here, high to low fib draw from what I can see, and they gave me some pretty useful fib targets. Right? They tend to get respected, if not on the first move up, then at least forming supply zone along them on secondary tests. So 6.85, pretty nicely respected. Almost came up to 11.09, almost very nicely respected. So I'm going to continue with this fib draw. I'm going to say 11.09 is still my high time frame target, considering this is still higher lows, higher highs, right? So still that it's really implied that we will come up into that 11.09 still. And if we keep going from there, then I'll probably fall back on this fib draw for future price targets, right? For my speculative future price targets, I'm just looking for random magic numbers to potentially speculate resistance, right? And we can really even delete the high time frame fib because this 2.618 lines up pretty nicely anyways. So we can really just kind of use this fib draw going forward. right? So I'm targeting all of these crazy, stupid high fib targets. I'm just going to keep looking for them. Take some profit, take some profit, take some profit until bears no longer look dumb, right? Because at the moment, bears look very dumb, right? So then we zoom into our 4 hour. We know that currently daily time frame implies higher highs, higher lows into price discovery. This is very clearly an uptrend. So what does our 4 hour say? Really, I'm going to call this a consolidation. I'm going to call this sideways. And I know this is a lower low. I'm going to make, the no analysis, whatever that I tend to stay away from. I'm going to say that this, for the most part, is just consolidation. So if we continue downwards, we break below this low, all of a sudden, it looks like a deeper pullback is coming. Right? It looks like we might head down into these 4 hour 200 MAs, and it looks like we have 4 hour demand at this 2828 region. That's pretty cool. 2828 and 4 hour 200 MAs, and that would still be a higher low on the daily. I'm thinking maybe. Wait, hold on. Debatable. You could debate that. You could see this as the higher low, or you could see this as your higher low. Right. So depending on how you want to see it. So could be the higher low on the daily that you're looking for. If we break down, test these 4 hour 200s, you could obviously debate that. Right. Market structure is interpretation. So that's a 4 hour chart for the most part, consolidation. And when we zoom into our hourlies, hourly 200 MAs, very well respected. And we might even have nice little zone here as well, right? So horizontal zone with our hourly 200s. If you lose this region, then you're looking at, you're probably going to pull back deeper on something like your 4 hour, right? The 4 hour consolidation is starting to break down. Until then, it's implied that bulls have the edge here, even within this consolidation, because the higher time frames say so. Higher time frames say higher highs, higher lows, bears are dumb, price discovery, right? So that's my analysis for Maker. Not too much of an analysis, mostly consolidation, and whatever happens next probably sees the midterm trend follow. Will you please WRX and hot? All right. WRX, I'm going to assume USDT pair. If not, just let me know. You want BTC pair? All right. So this is where Mercury feels very uncomfortable. This is where things have gone so parabolic and so far into price discovery that I start having to find justifications. I start having to try and justify price action rather than letting the price action do the talking for me. So this has gone past my 11.09 fib. So to me, this fib draw now, even though it got very nicely respected all the way throughout, that's no longer relevant to me. I can't use that. I have nothing else to work with. So I got to find new justifications for price action. So I'm going to try this fib draw. I don't think it's going to give me anything, right? Yeah, it doesn't give me anything. I'm going to try this fib draw. Don't think that's going to give me anything either. All right, so I don't have too much to work with in this far and this deep and this exaggerated of a price discovery. All right, I wish I did. This is, you could argue this is actually a bearish structure. Right, so this is a lower high. This is clearly a lower low. Right, so you could argue a downtrend on your daily. So you want to see your 4 hour go against that if you're bullish. You want to see some bullish arguments on your 4 hour, on your lower time frames. And oh my God, I'm sorry guys, you're gonna hate me, but the 4 hour 200s get respected for this coin as well. 4 hour 200s very cleanly respected as local tops. Then that's a deviation, but when we broke above, start retesting them as local bottoms. and this is no different. Who's to say this won't be the same result as this or this or this or this, right? I don't know. All I'm saying is you are now testing the same zone that you tested previously and found local bottoms for the majority of this uptrend, of this parabolic, price discovery. So you're testing that zone again. So isn't there the slight, even if the slight chance that you'll do the exact same thing here? I would assume so, right? So it's hard to be fully bearish on this until you lose those, until you convincingly start trading below them, closing 4-hour candles below, and you cannot reclaim them as support. You start bearish retesting them as resistance, right? That's when all of a sudden I become very uncomfortable and I'm not looking to hold this because we went fully parabolic and the only real demand zone I can see on the 4-hour is all the way down at 57 cents, right? That's when that comes in. But that's not a discussion worth having at the moment as long as you're still holding that as support. As long as you're still potentially going to use the same zone that you've been using as a local bottom for the past however many months, right? So the conviction comes in similar to, I can't remember what it was. I think it was BitTorrent, BTT, but it's very similar, right? So this is a lower high. So it's still within the trend of the downtrend. That was all of this downtrend, right? This is a higher low. You're holding your 4-hour 200s, right? You're still bullish retesting them. So now the conviction comes in when you break above this zone on your 4-hour chart, which is at the moment supply, and you start using it as support. At the same time, in the process of doing that, you've also flipped your 4-hour trend bullishly, right? So now you're uptrending on your 4-hour. So local bottom potentially, reclaiming a level, showing strength, flipping and confirming the trend bullishly. Those are arguments that you want to make to compile that sort of macro, bottom and potential continuation into further price discovery, farther than what we've already seen. Right, so maybe at that point you want to take this fib draw, this high to low, right? So that's when you can start making those arguments. At the moment, it's sort of iffy. It's this can break whichever way, right? If we break above the supply, looks very likely that we'll head up and test our next supply. I'm gonna mark it right here, $4.30 region, right? Reclaim that zone. You're looking at a potential 50% move, right? If you lose this region, if you break below this low, you're looking at a potential 74% move. We have some demand here, probably on the hourly. So we'll mark that out. That's probably where that wick found support. But still, right? So breakdown, that's what, 20%? No, farther than that. Hold on, wait. So you break down from here. Yeah, 20%. And you break down from there. That's another 50% or so, right? So lots of potential for whichever way this breaks. At the moment, for me, again, very uncomfortable sort of price action analysis. So iffy. Could go either way, in my opinion. So you also want hot USDT, I'm assuming. Take a sip of water. All right. I don't think I've ever looked at this chart, to be honest with you. This is one of the very few in the crypto market that I don't have levels already drawn for. So these are just daily levels that we're watching. We can probably find a 4-hour level there, and I'm pretty confident we can find a 4-hour level there as well. So we're gonna go ahead and mark that out. All right, resistance, 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 support on that wick. So daily trend actually does imply higher highs, higher lows. This is still perfectly within that trend, right? This is still a higher low than this low. For fibs, I want to see if I can find something that works pretty nicely. And wow, that's actually beautiful. 1.618, 3.618, and 11.09, all very well respected as local tops. So it's kind of just skipping the fib in between each time. So that's very pretty to me. I'm a nerd. I nerd out over stuff that looks like this. Um, so after tapping 11.09, come down and bullish retest this 4-hour demand, and you're still holding a higher low on your daily, but this scares me. And the reason it scares me is because the 4-hour 200s. So if we consistently use them as basically local bottoms, I know they don't get tapped perfectly, but if we're holding them as support, we're consistently somewhat using them as local bottoms. And now all of a sudden, they are curled over, right? Their momentum is starting to curl. Right? They're at least neutral now. They're not really favoring either side. The EMA is facing slightly down. MA is still slightly facing up. So it's just basically neutral, going sideways. And we're trading below them, acting as resistance. That is very scary to me. That implies that there might be a bigger downtrend to follow. When you pair that up with the fact that this tapped the 11.09 fib, which is kind of that last resort, crazy parabolic bull market top, ideally, then this looks very scary, right? And then to go along with that, we can probably mark out 4-hour supply somewhere in this region. Let me see how I want to draw this. How do I want to draw this? Let's do, I think I might mark out 2. So I'm going to mark 1 here. And I'm also going to mark out 1 here as well. Right? So supply, supply, below 4-hour 200s, trading neutrally, 11.09 fib. So this needs to show strength. This needs to flip the bearish market structure bullishly. This is a higher low, so you got the first step. You've managed to put the first piece in the puzzle. You still need higher high. You still need to break above this region, right? In doing that, you'll reclaim this zone. You'll reclaim your 4-hour 200 EMA, and I would assume potentially reclaim this higher up supply zone as well, and the 4-hour 200 MA to go along with that. So things shift very favorably if this happens, right? Because you'll have that bullish market structure. You'll have the higher low, higher high uptrend. You'll have the reclaim of a very pivotal level in these 4-hour 200s. You'll probably get them slanted upwards again, and you're reclaiming horizontal supply zones as support, as demand, right? In the meantime, I am zoomed out looking for buy targets lower, right? I'm going to be honest with you. I would have had this as a buy target had you come in and, gave me this chart request earlier. Most definitely would have told you this demand zone is one of my buy targets. Depending on if we're up here, that's a buy target. This zone is probably a buy target. So buy target, buy target, buy target, right? We keep attributing that all the way down, right? So now we have maybe some demand here as well. And so buy target, all the way down until eventually you probably don't want to be buying this anymore because you're flipping your trend bearishly on all time frames. So about here, below this zone, when I want to start calling it quits and really zoom out, right? But prior to that, this most definitely is a buy target. So UBXT, USDT, and actually I think FTX has more price action, right? Yeah. All right. So for this, I'm actually going to draw my fib draw here from this high to low, and we'll see what that gives us. That's pretty nice. I like that. So only really the 3.8 or 3.618 and the 4.236 kind of respected. So if we keep going, I'm going to look for the 6.85. I'm going to look for 11.09. Again, uncharted waters, price discovery, higher highs, higher lows. You could debate that. Actually, I probably will. This is a lower low, right? So you got the lower low. So now you need the higher high to continue. But for the most part, higher lows, higher highs, price discovery, bears are dumb, yada yada. Uncharted waters, huge potential. No one knows how high it can go. You want to be greedy with your sell targets. You want to be greedy. You want to have these crazy high, you know, fib targets or whatever for this coin as long as lower time frames and the daily trend agree with that. So we can zoom in. At the moment, daily chart did break with a lower low. So if you get a lower high, does imply lower highs, lower lows, downtrend, potentially some sort of bear market for UBXT, right? But just like Bitcoin, just like a lot of coins, doesn't help us too much. Crypto's a very fast moving market. If you're only trading the daily time frame, you're probably going to be left in the dust pretty often, right? So we put a lot of weight on these 4-hour charts. So the 4-hour, finally, we find something that doesn't respect 4-hour 200s perfectly as the local bottom. But it's still the same gist in the sense that once we break down and we fail to hold them as resistance and continue lower as we should, because this is a downtrend, right? So once you lose them as support, you've used them as support here. So now you should use them as resistance and continue lower. Once you reclaim them and eradicate that bearish argument, bullish retest, off to the races, right? So you may see the same thing happen here where you broke down, right? And all of a sudden you reclaim. So now if you bullish retest, you want to see, is this going to hold the higher low and potentially continue into new all-time highs, higher lows or higher highs, higher lows, price discovery, bears are dumb, that sort of gist, right? It's a very real possibility. You want to keep that in the back of your mind at all times. Or if we lose them again, we cross below this low, we know that our daily already put in the lower low. So if we follow up and downtrend from here, that probably means we found our lower high. So now we're confirmed trending bearishly on all time frames, and our 4-hour 200s have been lost to support. So we probably don't want to be in this. Right? It's probably not a great idea. We might continue downtrend. That would be implied. Right? Until then, looks pretty solid. I will say there is resistance in this region for me. I'm going to mark out that zone as supply. So now you have, if you don't get some sort of pullback by the dip before breakout, then you can at least jump in on a breakout reclaim of this region as support, right? I would have told you the exact same thing back here. Broke out. We slightly bullish retested. Some people might count that. I don't, but we break out and kind of just plummet, right? So same exact thing I would have told you back here that did not work out. I see the same probabilities. So I'm going to say again, breakout, reclaim, likely to head to new all-time highs, likely to see that bears are dumb, higher highs, higher lows, price discovery sort of thing, right? When you pair that with the fact that we are bullish uptrending on the 4-hour and whatever, then things start to look very favorable, right? This as a whole is still a downtrend with this being a higher high, right? So that is the break in our downtrend, where this is for the most part consistent lower lows, lower highs. this is a deviation away from the trend. So you want to see continuation, right, in either scenario, either above this zone or below and into the 4 hour 200s. Either way. Also, CTSI. I don't think I've ever heard of this coin. Oh, I guess I have because it already charted. And beautiful fibs. All right, so 3.618, perfectly respected as local tops. And then 6.85 was the most recent local top. So nice price action here. Looks like we formed supply along or almost along the 3.618 and bullish retesting it as support. This was the reaction from that 27% move. So very nice. We may have reclaimed some lower time frame levels from that. For the most part, I can make my market structure analysis on this. For the most part, this is up, right? This implies higher highs, higher lows, bears are dumb, price discovery. On the bigger outlook, what is the market structure here really? I could have told you higher highs, higher lows, right? It's very clean, very obvious. This price action, I have no idea. This is a lower low. This is a higher high. This is a lower low. What does that give you? Chop. It's not consolidation. It's not an uptrend. It's not a downtrend. It's just weird, illogical price action. So I have no justification for this on the daily time frame. I can't make a market structure analysis, but I can say there's demand in this zone. You lose that. You're looking at a potential pullback to 25 cents, 23 cents. You have your daily 200 EMA, maybe even your 200 daily MA. You lose those, right? All this region, you lose all of that. You're probably plummeting. You're probably in a bear market at that point. But this is still holding a support. So now we need to zoom in on lower time frames and see what's the analysis for these lower time frames. And man, I know you guys hate me. 4 hour 200s, right? For a lot of this live stream. And it's the same thing here. It is, they have consistently acted as local bottoms for a lot of the uptrend. And when we break below them and start using them as resistance, things look very scary. But once we reclaim, bullish retest, they act as a local bottom once again before more price discovery. So this has the potential to do the exact same thing here. Bearish retest the 4 hour 200s. All of a sudden, we have now flipped the same region that we've been using as local bottoms for the majority of this run up. We flipped that into resistance. That's where you hear me come in and say, this looks very scary. I'm looking for buy targets lower. I'm looking for this 43-cent demand zone. I'm looking for 25 cents. I'm looking for 23 cents, yada, yada, right? That argument goes away when you see a reaction like this, which pushes you back above the 4 hour 200s. Now it becomes, are we going to hold these? Are these going to act as support? Potentially the same local bottom that we've seen them act as for however many months. And it's likely. If we lose them again, you're probably going to come down to this 43-cent demand zone again. As long as they hold, it's likely that they'll act as some sort of local bottom before a much bigger uptrend, right? So I do want to mark out, looks like we have 4 hour supply somewhere in that region, right? So maybe a move up back into 72 cents. All of a sudden, you break above 72 cents. It is very strongly bears are dumb, price discovery, higher highs, higher lows, yada, yada. Zoom out, look for 11.09, maybe find a new fib draw, look for that, and keep repeating that process until it no longer works, right? And then hourly. I don't want to make too much of an analysis here on the hourly. Hourly 200 MAs do seem notable, but pretty choppy. Pretty choppy price action between them. Sometimes they get very nicely respected. Sometimes we kind of break below and make you think a certain thing. And yeah, so very, very choppy price action on the hourly. Wouldn't trade this on lower time frames too much. I'd mainly focus on trying to swing trade this, right? Trying to look for the very volatile swing setups where I'm looking to buy something like 4 hour 200s and swing it all the way up into 72 cents for a 40% move. Something like that. Would not feel comfortable trying to pinpoint certain levels because sometimes they pinpoint, sometimes they do this, right? Very weird, choppy price action. There is probably an alpha in these hourly 200s, but it's not clean. It's not the cleanest, so hard to make really any sort of analysis on it. We also have SNX USDT. All right. So another clean fib draw. 2.618 got respected. 3.618 got respected. 4.236 respected. Nice clean fib draw. If we continue the uptrend, I'm going to continue using these fibs, right? For 6.85, for 11.09, wherever it is. Going to continue using the exact same fib draw, right? This market structure, though, is a downtrend. This is lower highs and lower lows for SNX. So I'd be very cautious. But we have downtrended into support, into the 200 daily moving averages. So ideally, you're not holding for all of that downtrend. You're not, still just holding. Once we confirm that, you're not praying that this acts as some sort of local bottom before a much bigger up move, but there's a chance that it may do that, right? Because we tap support. So if our higher outlook trend, I'm talking weekly now, if that trend is going to resume, then it's ideal for this to be the spot at which it does that, right? And then from there, we can take things time frame by time frame, zoom in, look for key levels. Off the bat, this region sticks out to me. I will probably move that just a little bit lower. Yeah, something like that. So resistance, support, 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 resistance, right? Anticipating it to act as resistance. Finally, oh wait, I did not mean to delete all these. Okay. Finally, no clean reaction on the 4 hour 200s for SNX, at least not in this price action. You see, did they do so for this? So it is pretty clean. It does respect it, but this price action as a whole, while it is downtrend, for the most part, it's a very tight downtrend. It's a very, we're trading within the same region. We're trading within this sort of $22 to $16 range for the most part, with a hint of downtrend. It's not very strong. It doesn't have a ton of momentum yet. Now that you have broken down from the range, now that you're bearish retesting it, and you know that your daily implies lower highs, lower lows, it's possible for you to really start picking up the momentum. This acts as resistance. All of a sudden, if you see the trend remain the trend, meaning continuation of lower highs, lower lows, this has the potential to very steeply sell off, right? You lose those 200 dailies, not much of a bullish argument here at all. So I'd be very cautious if this zone rejects, if we continue the downtrend, if the recent low was not the macro low, I probably would not feel comfortable holding this, right? So if we reclaim the range, we can look for the tap of the 4 hour 200s because while they don't get perfectly respected, they do get respected to some degree. So they'll probably act as some sort of resistance on the way up assuming that this range gets reclaimed. Once you move the 4-hour 200s out the way, it's just like the same trading the range setup that we applied to previous charts, where you were supposed to bearish retest this range low as resistance and continue the implied downtrend. And instead, what you did was you broke down, you reclaim the range, you eradicate the 4-hour 200 bearish argument. Now it looks very likely that you head up to the opposite side of the range, right? Then you reclaim the top side of the range. It looks very likely that you'll head up into new all-time highs, right? You're eradicating the daily lower high, lower low bearish market structure. So that's the way that I would play this. It needs to reclaim the 1630 level. Then from there, you probably can get a nice little long scalp into the 4-hour 200s, right? So reclaim this zone, might get a nice little 8% push up into the 4-hour 200s. You reclaim 4-hour 200s. All of a sudden, it becomes very likely that you see another move up into $22. It's another 20%. And then if you reclaim the $22 range high as support, and you're looking at price discovery, you're looking at fib targets, right? 6.85, 11.09, yada yada. All right, so KIN USDT or USD, KIN USD. Probably not enough price action for the daily. Yeah, so not enough price action on the daily. I could even go on a limb here and say that this is a bearish market structure, lower high. I know people who would even argue this, lower high, continuation. So I'm going to say bearish market structure on our daily chart. And then when you pour that, or when you, I don't even know what I was trying to say there. When you pour that with the 4-hour, when you pair that, that's what I was trying to say. When you pair that with the 4-hour analysis, this is also consistent lower highs and lower lows, and you've lost this 4-hour zone as demand, right? And you've lost your 4-hour 200s, which got respected twice. And remember, they just got created not too long ago, so how much weight can we give them really? Debatable. But they got respected as support twice, and we used them as resistance, and almost used them here, and we used them here. So the fact that your daily is downtrending, and your 4-hour is below the 4-hour 200s, and you've lost this sort of zone as support, makes me think this is not done downtrending. And I will continue assuming that it's not done downtrending until we show signs of strength, right? And signs of strength is not a 60% move. I do not care. I don't care what the percentage move from high to low or from low to high is. That is not strength to me. Strength is reclaiming levels, reclaiming a trend, shifting structure bullishly again. That's what matters to me, not the percentage move. This is still resistance, in my personal opinion. It's debatable because it's very new, but I've seen a pretty solid reaction 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So it's resistance to me. If we reclaim it, all of a sudden, yes, that is strength. You have made a higher high after making higher lows, and you have reclaimed a resistance level. So you might see a move up into the next resistance, 13% move at this 4-hour supply, right? You reclaim 4-hour supply, you see another move into 3,200 sats, right? You reclaim that, you see another 20% move into 3,700. You reclaim that, it's very likely you see a new all-time high because there's not much resistance overhead at that point. Right? So I take it level by level. I'm looking for the strength. I'm not looking to bet on a bottom on something that's downtrending, just like I'm not looking to bet on something that's uptrending. I'm looking to bet on a local top. I'm just not willing to do it. Probabilities don't favor with that, right? So I'd rather trade whatever the trend is. And for this, the trend is very strongly down, right? I will say this is demand. So this zone, right? This was the listing all-time high. Then we came up, tested it as resistance, back tested it as support, resistance. So now if we bullish retest this zone, that's the ideal place for you to find that next higher low to start showing that strength. If you lose that zone, I do not want to be in this because it looks like it could come down to this region or all-time lows, right? So I'm putting a lot of pressure on this 1800 sats region. If we lose that, probably a much bigger downtrend, right? All right. Anything else that you guys want to see from me, or any just questions about anything in general, really? Or else I will go ahead and wrap this up. Sam is typing, so give him a minute. Can FTT do what BNB did? All right, let's look at what BNB did. That's a pretty wide stop loss there, TradingView. What the hell is that? All right. All right, so what did BNB do? BNB went absolutely parabolic. It made me very uncomfortable because it passed my 11.09, right? This was 11.09, I believe. Tapped it perfectly. Should have been a local top, right? Whatever. That's the ideal place for a parabolic bull market to end, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Kept going, right? So now we have to find a new fib, and we're seeing continuation of that. BNB at the moment, consolidation, right? So this is a higher low, uptrend still implied. This is a lower high. So now one of two things happen. You either cross with a lower low, continue downtrend. Now you have a confirmed downtrend, or you find a higher low, which is what we found. And now you have confirmed consolidation, right? So consolidation implies sideways. And whichever way the sideways breaks, probably determines high time frame trend. So the idea is whether this consolidates or whether it pulls back from a local top or a fib or whatever it may be, it's probably going to continue into new all-time highs over and over and over again until it doesn't, right? And it's that simple. It's going to continue its trend, and it's likely to continue its trend until the trend is no longer the trend, right? And the trend is all of a sudden bearish. So if this consolidates, whatever, I know BNB is not the thing that you wanted an analysis on, but that's what BNB did, right? So can FTT you do the same thing that BNB did? Considering that, oh, it was a nice little long. Considering that this is also in price discovery, and they are both exchange coins, yes, there's very strong potential, right? Consistent, higher highs, higher lows, and really you could argue this is a lower high. So let's see. Is this likely to be some sort of top? Is there the probability of that? Assuming, or not assuming, but seeing that we actually have a downtrend, right? Lower highs, lower lows. So downtrend is actually implied. What are our lower time frames saying? Lower time frames really like 4-hour 200s, right? So you have argument to be made for both sides here. You really do. You have the argument that the 4-hour 200s might act as the local bottom the same way they've done for a lot of the uptrend, a lot of this push upwards, right? And you also have the bearish argument to that, which is your daily is saying lower highs, lower lows all of a sudden, where it was not saying that previously, right? So if we see that continue and we see a loss of these 4-hour 200s, that bullish argument kind of goes away, and it seems very likely for the daily to continue its bearish trend. Right? So you lose 4-hour 200s, all of a sudden it becomes take a step back, look for buy targets lower. Look for $42. We have 4-hour demand there. Look for $38. We have 4-hour demand there. Look for $34. We have 4-hour demand there. We lose that. We're looking for $21. Right? We have 4-hour demand there. So that's the way that I would play this. And then when you pair that with the 4-hour analysis that we have 4-hour supply at this zone, it makes sense. It would make sense that we might put in the lower high on our daily that says lower highs, lower lows. And if we're going to do it, we're probably going to do it in this region. Right? So this has potential to be some sort of local top for FTT. So can this do what BNB did? Potentially, but not very likely at the moment, considering the daily trend is saying downtrend. Right? Once you reclaim this 4-hour supply zone, you've also broken your structure bullishly on the daily time frame, and it's already confirmed bullish on your 4-hour. So now you have every single time frame confluently saying up is the trend, bears are dumb, price discovery, yada yada. That's when the potential to do what BNB did really comes back in with full force, and that argument becomes very strong. At the moment, yes, it's still a strong argument, and you still have that major pivot level that has acted as the local bottoms for however many months or so. You're still holding those, you're still potentially using them as local bottoms, but the trend, at least on the daily, has changed bearishly. So you need to change that back in order for that to be a real possibility. All right. Anything else? All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up then. So, thank you guys so much for coming out to this live stream. I really do appreciate it. The fact that I get paid to come in here and spill my thoughts to you guys, and you're, always in here supporting me and love to see my thoughts and whatnot. It really means a lot. It's really awesome to get to do this for you guys. I very much enjoy it. This doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm hanging out with, my friends, my family, and just telling them whatever my thoughts about these charts. So amazing. I love you guys for coming out to these live streams. I really do appreciate it. I hope you get a ton of value from them. And yeah, if you're new to SP, I know a lot of you are, so welcome. These live streams happen every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we announce the time. I try and announce it at least an hour beforehand, right? So you have an hour to sort of adjust your schedule or whatever to make it live, and then the recording to these streams gets put up on the SP website in the form of a YouTube link. So just go to the update notifications, and you should see a link come back there an hour or two after it's posted. It should be fully processed, and you can watch it from there. So thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, take it easy, guys, and we're back on Wednesday. I'll see you Wednesday.